So, Venerable Sir, I've been following the practice of NoFap, which involves voluntary refraining from pornography and masturbation. However, this path has brought me to seek your guidance because I've grown weary of mere abstinence. My goal is to find true liberation from the internal sexual pressure. Despite experiencing increased vitality through this practice, I think NoFap, I still feel the weight of this pressure within me. I request your assistance in finding the genuine freedom.
Yeah, so the next step is to start discerning the mental aspects of sensuality and sensual craving. So being celibate, withdrawn from sensuality, not exposing yourself to unsuitable sights and so on, that's obviously necessary. And now you can start seeing the mental counterparts of those desires. The main aspect being, as we already spoke about in those early videos, that no one wants sensuality and so on, it's like they're unpleasant. Those pressures are unpleasant. They hurt. So what is your attitude towards pain now? Having contained your craving for pleasures, sexuality and so on, having practiced sense restraint, withdrawal, do you now have aversion towards things? Do you cultivate that aversion? Are you resisting the discomfort of your body, of your unsatisfied body, unsatisfied in the old ways? Because basically it's like taming the sensual itch. And the only way you used to know how to tame it is to scratching it. So it's going to take a while before the mind stops associating itch with a scratch. But that can happen if you stick to it. If you abstain from scratching by looking, by physical behavior and so on, then abstain from scratching by mentally indulging those thoughts, the nature of the itch will become more apparent, which is that it's unpleasant and it's actually itches less if it's left alone on the level of the mind. That's where itch is actually uprooted. If you engage with itch mentally, it translates into physical need. But it starts and remains fully rooted in that, on the mental level. So if you have been withdrawn, not delighting in it mentally, not obviously acting out physically, you could start seeing that itch for what it is. It's slightly uncomfortable, but only from the point of view of wanting to scratch it. And you learn how to become peaceful within it. You learn how to come within the itch, and the need for scratching it disappears because you realize that is the more instantaneous way of freeing yourself from the itch. Calm within the itch removes the itch, removes the pressure. Scratching the itch relieves it on the surface, makes you worse on the inside. So it increases it next time, and next time, and next time. But actually, if you remain unmovable internally, in the heart of that itch, it doesn't itch. And in order to aid that, well, there's lots of other talks we did. I mean, I can't possibly go through all of it now. But yes, so contemplate, again, the repulsiveness of things you are attracted to, the factual repulsiveness. Don't contemplate them through the itch and through trying to get rid of the itch. But when you're not itching, then bring those things to mind of the repulsive nature that pertain to your sexual desires and so on. Because bodies are generally repulsive. It's just the mind selectively only focus and pick the signs of the agreeable shapes and forms and so on, ignoring the disagreeable simultaneously there in it. When the itch is present, you mustn't be doing all of this in order to get rid of that sexual itch, because that's going to become another way of trying to scratch the itch.
Yeah. So another way of trying to scratch the itch, instead of acting out of it through your normal behavior of masturbation, other sexual activities, and I think with people that have done this NoFap some can start hating the objects that they
Sure.
blaming the objects
For
hating women or hating the other the thing that they sexually attracted to, hating sensuality, hating the world. So you just sort of hurt yourself.
You can't help if that happens. Like mind might go that way. You can't help not acting out of it. So if you are building aversion towards these things, well, that's fine in a way. It will subside if you don't act out of it. So don't be expressing that aversion. Don't be sort of trying to like act by body, by speech, by mind, hating, revolving around the hate, because that's not where the problem was rooted to begin with. It was rooted in you, yourself, not being developed in regard to the itch of your own body. When experienced, you needed to scratch it. You were seeking means of scratching it. You were developing different tastes of scratching it, all rooted in wanting to get rid of it. So you have to stop trying to get rid of it, which obviously that person did through physical restraint, through non-masturbation, celibacy, and so on. And now, mentally, the weight of that itch is becoming apparent. So now you have to mentally not allow your thoughts to sort of proliferate and fantasize about these things. But at the same time, you don't want to be trying to get rid of the itch, because the itch is the reference point for your development. If the itch is obscured, you don't know if you're going to move by it or not. So you don't need to seek the itch as it's becoming obvious. It's by not seeking the scratching, itch becomes apparent. Because, sometimes people think, I need to go and expose myself to sensuality to see if I'm free. Well, if you don't know if you're free, means you're not free. If you're not free from doubt in regard to sensuality, means you are still within sensuality. On the contrary, you want to expose yourself to the itch of sensuality, you need to say no to the means of scratching it. So, sense restraint and virtue reveals the sensual itch. And if you think, I don't feel any itch, increase the sense restraint. Say no to more things, seeing with your eyes or hearing of the pleasant kind and so on. And then if there's truly no pressure of the itch manifested, you're free. And you wouldn't be going back to it, because it was always unpleasant to begin with. Would you be scratching your wound once it's healed and stopped itching? It would be a stupid thing to do.
So also what I think the person was asking might be, or is he expecting the itch to disappear completely?
Yes.
The pressure.
Yeah. So basically, the pressure, as I said, it's pressured by the need to scratch. Pressure pressures you on account of your assumed value of scratching. And that needs to change. You need to recognize that it should never, and it's dangerous to scratch it, basically. It's a decline, it's a destruction, it's undoing, scratching it.
And not scratch.
And never scratch it, basically. That, in and of itself, would train your mind to get used to the pressure. And when the mind stops expecting the scratch, itch will disappear. You have to not scratch the itch, and you have to not try to get rid of it. Because that becomes another way of trying to scratch it. Remove it.
Yeah.
So don't go towards it, but don't deny it. But recognize the pressure is the measure of what you need to get used to it. So imagine this pressure that's pressuring me now acutely, let me live with it and never act out of it. And let's see what happens. Well, what will happen is it will stop pressuring it. Because I said the acuteness of the pressure is because of you still looking past it towards the scratch of one kind or the other.
Desiring pleasure, lusting.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that in and of itself perpetuates the underlying desire.
And the aversion towards it.
Yeah.
That itch.
So if you're averse towards it, you want it to go away, to never be there, that's already you're basically on the same level as desire to scratch it.
Yeah. Same.
Right. Which is good to begin with, because if you didn't have that, you would not have even abstained from masturbation and sexuality and so on. But now the next step is you realize, okay, now I can't get rid of all of this. I need to actually train my mind in regard to it, so my mind is not moved by it. Because again, itch comes from the body being there, being vital, being alive, being hormonal, being whatever. But how that internal itch of your body affects your mind, that's on you. Whether your mind is moved by it and projected towards sensual desires and ideas, or completely indifferent, seeing the danger of sensual desires and ideas and not going there, then that itch is not an itch. It's just an aspect of this body and how it's felt. That's what Buddha said. For as long as a man is not developed internally in regard to his own body, he's not going to overcome the desire towards the external counterparts of his sexuality. So you need to be, your own mind needs to be developed in regard to your own body. And that's what it means. Your mind needs to be developed in regard to your own sexual itch. And by being developed means unmoved, ceasing to expect the scratch, and ceasing to expect the itch to go away. Because see, the only experience of absent itch that you know is the experience of aftermath of scratching. And that's not actually absence of an itch. That's just numbing the itch that's still there. Numbing the wound that still hurts. So that's why it's a problem to want the itch to go away with aversion and act out of it, because any knowledge of itch not being there is the knowledge of itch still being there, just numbed on account of my sensual endeavors and scratching. So if you abstain from both, scratching it and wishing it to get rid of it, you will actually get to learn truly what freedom from an itch is.
Yeah, I like to say it's like the immediate calming of that itch.
Yes.
But not by
it will eventually become immediate calming of it. Just seeing right through it removes it. And then you wouldn't even have to see right through it. Itch will cease to signify the scratch, which means it won't be an itch anymore.